Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at Rez Infinite. Now, Rez Infinite is the release on Steam in particular in 2017 of Rez, re-release of it. I believe it was a PlayStation 2 game originally, maybe even a PlayStation 1. It's a weird one in that everything here is being rendered effectively with vertices and not voxels, that technology, which really hasn't been well implemented even yet, would have come much longer. In fact, if anything, the vertice style probably is very more a throwback to some of the early arcade games pre Nintendo Entertainment System era, second generation video game consoles, home consoles. There is an epilepsy warning and a heavy recommendation because this game is very musical, which is odd since there's no music at all playing on the menu. So they want you to either have surround sound or headphones on so you can get more of a sound stage set up so you can actually hear the sounds coming from you. This is an interesting also shoot 'em up game effectively because it's an on-rail shooter, but you have to lock on to fire, and you can swipe your targeting reticle over multiple targets to fire multiple shots, but not an infinite number of shots, despite the name. So you have to kind of time and learn the layout of the enemies and how many enemies you should target and fire in a wave before you should release the lock-on button and fire your missiles. It's effectively only missile shooting for the entire game. This game is a cult hit in particular because of the music and because of the kind of trippy visuals and just it being something kind of technology pushing. Originally, it came with a thumper accessory, or you could buy a thumper accessory that literally would vibrate your chair to the beat. It is definitely getting into the flow of the music, getting into the beat of it, almost attempting to lock your brain into that flow state, into almost a transcendental trance of sorts as you're playing the game. The game's not particularly that hard to start with, at least, so it tries to ease you into it somewhat. There was a brief time, in which magic mushrooms were legal in Japan, and this is one of those games where I feel like the creator very possibly experimented with some magic mushrooms to create it. Although, as trippy as the visuals may look, there is actually a kind of subtle, non-verbal story that is told. Your interpretation of the story can be fairly varied, but you should get the general idea. It's a little weird, certainly, to have a game, even a cult hit, have a merchandise webpage link, but plenty of other games have links that link to other purchases in them. There's just going to continuously be weirdness as far as like visual settings and such. I have really no way of telling or knowing if I could make the graphics look better or worse. Here's the trance vibration, where I guess I could attach a second controller to my PC and turn that on. I'm not sure how that really would work. I'd assume it would just be whatever the second recognized controller by Steam and DirectX would be your trance vibration controller. This is a game that may very well be too easy if you played with the mouse. It's also a game looking at the achievements where it wants you to play quite a bit. It's weird with all the visuals because you really do want this to be in full screen, so it's a little weird when I first launched this that it was at a fairly low resolution and in a windowed mode. So again, I might have set the graphics too high by just setting everything up. In particular, this anti-aliasing at MSAA times 8 was at times 4, I believe, before. But yeah, you have also different settings here being repeated for Area X, which is an extra section. This game also supports Steam VR and Oculus VR as options. I don't have any VR headsets, but this is definitely probably one of the best examples of where VR could have gone if it was to ever succeed, and could still now go, in that you've taken a game that existed before VR in its current state existed, a very old game, and you've found a way to find the right game for the equipment. That being said, this is also still a game where it would probably be sit-down VR experience. You're not going to just reach out and grab the enemies and shoot at them. And so let's just hop into Rez. So we'll go through the how to play, and the how to play will tell you the story as explained by the game. But honestly, I have certainly some nostalgia for Rez Infinite, so my interpretation of the story is probably stronger in my mind than even what the creator's canonical interpretation of the story would be. And while I do have some nostalgia for this game, it's still important to point out that I really only played Rez Infinite. I've never played Rez. I played the Xbox 360 re-release of the game originally, which means maybe I've never done the Area X, and I've very possibly never engaged with some of the score attacks and this traveling mode. I don't think you really need the traveling mode, but it's nice to see it there since this is very much a audio-visual experience. Alright, so the story is that the world has become massively overpopulated. The rapidly expanding network society has been crippled by rising crime rates and is on the verge of collapse. Now, this world and this network society being described very possibly is much closer to a computer program, a simulation, than one would assume a real world with humans walking around. A new system, Project K, has been created to attempt to resolve the situation. At the core of the system is the Artificial Intelligence Center named Eden. Eden is the most advanced AI ever created. Pretty relevant these days to be talking about AI. Although we've been talking about artificial intelligence in sci-fi stories for 50 years plus, I'm sure. It has the ability to process vast amounts of information at once and use that information to form its own uniquely advanced, independent thoughts. Some would even say Eden has developed consciousness. Okay. However, Eden became confused as the flow of information sent to it began to increase in speed and volume. Eden started to question the meaning of its existence and the consequences of its actions. Finding itself surrounded by paradoxes and realizing the power of autonomy which it possessed, Eden began to shut itself down. Now you are to travel into the cyberspace, so apparently you are a human controlling an avatar. I never really got that in the story of Project K network on a mission to reawaken Eden. You must gain access to each area and layer of the system, destroy any viruses and firewalls you encounter. Viruses and firewalls, enemies the same. Interesting idea. I'm having a little bit of trouble reading this because I'm looking at this from a TV 8 feet away, and my eyesight's not getting better with age as far as reading text. Honestly, if I was just a foot closer, I wouldn't have as much problem. It is kind of a odd style font, and I think the voxel art style probably highlights that quite a bit, even though the font really isn't voxel based or vectorized, not voxel. The next and back buttons definitely feel more vectorized, and they do definitely look a little bit fuzzier. It says open your senses. So the game's fairly simple. You hold down the A button, you lock on with the left analog stick, and then you release the fire. So you have effectively a start locking on, move your targeting reticle, release the fire the missiles. You do that over and over again for the entire game. There's very, very few buttons being used here. The pause button, no back button support. You can aim either using the D-pad or the analog stick. The analog stick would probably do you better. There's an overdrive button where all viruses and projectiles on the screen will be destroyed for a limited time. That's basically a bomb button to clear the screen, and I think you have either a cooldown or a limited number of those. And then A is just lock and fire. You're doing nothing with X and Y. You're doing nothing with the right analog stick. You're doing nothing with right trigger, left trigger, right bump, left bump. Some of these buttons potentially could be remapped a little bit better. It might be a little bit easier on your fingers to use the right trigger instead of the A button to lock on. And yeah, I'm not even going to get into the mess of what you'd have to do if you were playing with mouse and keyboard. The heads-up display, this is all very basic stuff. The overdrive gauge is in the lower right, and evolution gauge is in the lower left. Your character avatar evolves as you play better and devolves as you take damage. So you want to be at the highest level of evolution possible just to fill in your life. Destroy the viruses with your lock-on laser to progress through the game. Destroy network openings to proceed to deeper layers and boost your analyzation rate for an area. Aim for 100% analyzation rate for each area. So there might be some split branching paths, or something like StarCraft 64. Although, I mean, not StarCraft, Star Fox 64. Although, in Star Fox 64, you could kind of control your character and spin your plane and fire different lasers and bombs and things. So there's a very tight minimalist control in this game, but it works. It really highlights that there's a major focus on the musical aspect of this. There is also a lot of effort put into the level design and the enemy layout, and we will see that as we get into the actual game. This is taking way too long. Lock on laser, hold down and lock on fire button to lock on to up to 8 targets at once. So yeah, what you don't want to have happen here, and you'll probably see me do it quite a bit, is that you'll go in like a circle on targets and then you'll miss one, and then you'll end up going in a circle a second time, and that'll slow you down. Enemy viruses attack by firing projectiles all at you. You can't dodge these projectiles, so you must shoot and destroy them to avoid taking damage, which that definitely tells you the scale of this game, in that you are not going to be shot at a lot compared to other games. You're not going to have 100 bullets all flying at you at once. You're going to have 8 bullets flying at you, giving you a decent amount of time to shoot down the bullets, or you're going to shoot down the enemies before they even get their first fire off. You begin the game at Evolution 1, which is a sphere. When you take damage, you evolve, your evolution gauge drops. If your gauge empties, you'll fall 1 evolution level down. If your gauge empties while you're at evolution level 0, it's game over. So I guess 1 is probably the slices of triangles, not triangles, rectangles in the middle, and 0 is the sphere, and then I'd assume 2 is the more connected wireframe version. Shoot network openings 8 times to warp to the next layer level. Clear layer level 10 to boost your area analysis rating to 100%. I think these are just gates. Red icons are overdrive items. Shoot them with your lock on to add overdrive to the overdrive gauge on the lower right for maximum. Activating overdrive will destroy all viruses and projectiles on screen for a limited time. Blue icons are evolution items. Shoot them also with your lock on laser to add to the evolution gauge on your lower left. Fill the gauge to advance 1 evolution level and transform your character. So, we now know how to play the game. Let's actually jump in and play the game. Now, you will be somewhat deceived here in that you see all of this is just Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, Area 4, and Area 5. And if you're playing in travel mode, you can just go through all of this area fairly quickly. But it is definitely a case that you're going to either play these levels multiple times, or the levels are going to be longer than you think. They're also telling you the artist who made the level, I suppose, or the made the music. I'd almost think that they're saying in the lower right hand corner that is the musician that they're crediting for the song for each level. Oh, and it's important to point out that you locking on is a part of the music. The more you play, the more the music plays. So it's basically every note only plays when you get a destroy. So that's one area. Yeah, really, it's not even a case where it's not even really a case where the music is unique without you playing. Oh, yeah, I guess it's important to point out this game is also incredibly fast. So if you don't have a ADHD style of playing in you, if you're not a rapid player, you're going to be in trouble fairly quickly. Now, on those analyst boxes, you can just hold it. So here we have a case where the there, we've leveled up. Now, do you really have to hit everything? No. There's our destroy, our overdrive bomb being used. Like, ideally you want to just hold your targeting reticle on the analyst cube. And every time you let go of the A button, you are making that clap sound. So the clapping when you release becomes part of the music too. Now the thing that's weird about this is you can't really take any time to just enjoy the scenery, unfortunately. Which it would be nice to certainly be able to do that. And the visuals, certainly, as far as you're seeing a depiction of the Sphinx, are interesting, to say the least. If anything, I'm a little surprised that this has come back so easily to me. But this is just the first level. And frankly, games evolve in difficulty. I find that you probably could play this game the wrong way if you didn't mash the A button non-stop. And this is almost certainly one of the games that ended up giving me arthritis in my fingers. So we went overdrive and leveled up again, which you can see there's almost a ricochet now happening with the laser shots. And as you go deeper, it feels like the world fills it in with more vectors. See, intruder, illegal system being established. I'm being detected as I get deeper, and the system defenses are initializing. And we have our first boss now. Yeah, almost certainly if you had if the Virtual Boy had succeeded, this would have been a Virtual Boy game. But inherently, the Virtual Boy didn't have a really good chance of succeeding because the technology just was not invented for, I think, about a decade later for them to have blue lasers or yellow lasers of any sort. Even now, yellow lasers are kind of difficult to accomplish. So until you can get like a red and a green and a blue, you can't have full color, and then you just end up with the ridiculous situation in the Virtual Boy where it is only red. I don't even think blue lasers were out when the Virtual Boy was released, but the Virtual Boy definitely did have this kind of vector graphics, although not really at this level in this visual polish that we see in this version. Although in all fairness, this remastered Infinite version of the game is probably doing the graphics at a much higher resolution and just maybe adding a little bit more shadowing and shading and texturing. Yeah, and I am just slowly wearing this down as it's trying to defeat me and shoot missiles at me and put up as many defenses as possible. Like, we're down to about a third. This is where you probably would have wanted to save your overdrive if you were a little concerned about that. And this also might be a case where the holding down of the button may be a little bit more helpful than tapping the buttons. Yep. As soon as you do all the damage, you win, so you don't have to take on every projectile if you don't want to. if you can rush through a cycle. And we can see in the background now, instead of vector graphics, you're starting to see real images. Earth Terra has been destroyed, invasion successful, you've reached something of the subsection there. So I shot down 99.21% of everything. I got 94.44% of the support items, and we got 100% of the analyzation. Play Area 2 has now been unlocked. So that AI's region there, that we saw in the story, is also the area selection. And so, yeah, that's Area 1. So, in theory, if it stays that easy, which it won't, Area 2 would be another 30 minutes, Area 3 would be another 30 minutes, Area 4 would be another 30 minutes, and Area 5. And these would, if this is Earth, there's a big assumption that this might be Jupiter or Mars, Mercury, Venus, other planets of sort. And unfortunately, I don't want to leave, because if I leave, then I'd start back at evolution level 1 instead of evolution level 2 or 3 that I'm at. So we'll just have to stay here as we continue to play. Obviously, though, if you're going to go through all the achievements, you probably have to shoot down 100%. There's no room for second or no room for mistakes at all. You probably would have to shoot down 100%. You probably would have to get 100% of the support items. The support items being told in percentages maybe gives you a little bit of a hint, but not much, that there would be somewhere around 3.66% or 3.56% of support items. That doesn't really indicate to you whether that's one item or two items. It should if I could do math better, but it doesn't in my case. But we also have Area X, which is at least one more area. So there's definitely a lot of room here. Rez Infinite definitely sells itself as being able to do 4K at 60 frames per second. I don't record at 4K, I only record at 1080p, and I only play games at 1080p because I just don't have a 4K monitor, and frankly, it's usually overkill. But in this case, since you are doing vertex graphics for the most part, it's much likelier, much higher of a chance that the game will look as good, if not better, at 4K. It won't look amazingly different, though, and it won't all of a sudden start looking realistic. This is a computer-generated world, a la something like the first Tron movie. So you are in that art style, and if you don't like that art style, then that's going to be a real shame as far as your enjoyment on this game. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's a link down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.